Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. I hope you're doing very well. I hope you're having a great start to 2025. I, for one, am really hopeful. They're really positive. So I wanted to drop this really quick video about having creative boundaries. Creative boundaries. And you're probably thinking, Debbie, why do you want to talk about boundaries as a creative? Well, in my recent life, I've learned what boundaries are. And I'm going to talk about exactly what boundaries are for me and ways that you can maintain those boundaries as a creative. And for some reason, like in life and in society, we think boundaries is what we call putting up a wall. People see it as putting up a wall. People see it as, you know, blocking and shutting people out. This is not what I'm talking about when I talk about boundaries. When I talk about boundaries, I'm not talking about building a wall. I'm talking about having a gate, more like having a gate that you control what comes in and out. So I don't really believe in cutting people off. I don't really believe in all of that unless it's absolutely necessary. I think people cancel people too quickly. But it is necessary to have boundaries that you control and that you control who comes in and out or what comes in and out so that you have a healthier life. And as a creative, this is really important. So I'm going to get straight into it now that we've talked about what boundaries are and how I see boundaries. There's four specific types of boundaries that's helped me as a creative and helped me as a designer, and I've had to learn over the years. But with you as a creative, you might be thinking, okay, maybe my life is a bit wacky at the moment. It's a bit disorganized. That might be because you don't have boundaries. And boundaries will help you streamline your life, help you have a healthier mindset, help reduce stress. It really goes a long way when you're creative. So, here are the four boundaries that every creative I feel should have when they're in 2025. So, the first boundary that creatives should have is financial boundaries. And when I say financial boundaries, I'm talking about how much you are going to price your work. Sometimes we don't have boundaries. I've been there when I don't have boundaries about how much I'm going to price my work. And I have bills to pay. I have things that I need to pay for, and I have a life to live. I have all these things. But if I'm not pricing myself, if I don't put a limit on how low I will go in terms of the pricing, I am going to be taken advantage of. I'm going to take on work that's not really worth my time. And from my experience, the work that you price the lowest is actually they're the most headache. For some reason, I don't really understand why. This is just like a universal truth. For some reason, the ones that are the cheapest are the most stressful. And this is why you need boundaries when it comes to your pricing. I think it makes more sense to call it price boundaries. But having pricing boundaries as a creative will allow you to put boundaries on yourself so that you're only charging your worth and charging enough for you to make a living and beyond, and putting boundaries on people that are wasting your time. So one of the boundaries that I have on my business website is a form. And this form, when people contact me, they can't just email me. My email address is not on my website as far as I think. With this boundary, this contact form, it has a list of questions that helps me qualify if this client is going to be worth my while. And these questions are like, what's the name of your business? Simple stuff, contact number, but it has other things such as what's the type of work that you need? What is your budget? So that's the main thing that helps me filter out people that are not really a good client for me, because I'm only want to work with people that have a certain budget, because I have a pricing boundary. I'm only going to work at a minimum a certain amount. That helps me have peace of mind knowing that the people that come through and book a call with me, even on my Calendly contact form, I have those same questions so that I can filter out people that don't have the budget, because I don't have time to do work that people can't afford. There are some exceptions that I make, but for the most part, there's a type of client that I want to work, and I want to work with clients that have the budget. So that's the pricing boundary I've put on myself as a creative, to have a better to have ease of mind when I'm working with someone and to continue to grow financially. So that's the first boundary I think that creators should have in 2025. The second boundary, which is also a very important one that I've had to learn, is time boundaries. Boundaries of time. How much time are you going to spend on your projects? How much time should it take? If you're doing a branding, a rebrand for something, how much time are you going to spend rebranding that project? Is it going to take you 3 weeks? Is it going to take you 4 weeks? I do a rebrand in between 4 to 5 weeks, and that's generally the amount of time I know it takes. And if it's going to take longer than that, then I have systems in place to say, okay, I might have to charge you more because we keep going back and forth. And you see what I mean? I have boundaries in terms of my time. I have boundaries in terms of my time working. What time do you want to stop working? You can't work throughout the day, sleep and wake up and go straight back to work. You need time to rest. You need time to wind down. Put boundaries on yourself in terms of the time that you're working. Put boundaries on the time that you're playing. You know, you can't just sit there watching Netflix all the time, playing video games all the time, and scrolling all the time. You need boundaries. Boundaries in terms of your time, the time spent doing things. That way you are not doing too much of one thing, which is very, very unhealthy. So as a creative, you need boundaries on your time, especially when you do a lot of hard work. Something needs to be balanced. If you work really, really hard, you need to rest really, really hard. So let there be balance there. And that's kind of time boundary will help you to do that. Decide how much time you want to spend on each thing. The third boundary that I feel creatives should have is access boundaries. This one is not even just for creativity or work. This is life. This is relationships. This is all these kind of things. A lot of us, we give people too much access to us, and they take more time than we think they will. So, for example, you tell someone says they want to have a quick chat with you, and you think it's only going to take 15 minutes. It takes at least half an hour, doubles the time. And it's even worse when they're doing it at late hours. So if as much as possible have boundaries to how much people have access to you. From clients, they can't call you after a certain time. They shouldn't be calling you at midnight and stuff like that. That's not healthy, and that's setting a bad precedent with your clients that they can just access you anytime. There's working hours. This is why we have a nine to five. It's your working hours. Your work, for the most part, unless it's really competitive, is not contacting you outside hours to do certain work. I know there's certain places that's like marketing agencies and stuff like that are a bit more demanding, and certain jobs, it depends on the job, but generally you have working hours. And if you're freelancing, you should have working hours. As a creative, you need to have access boundaries so that people aren't calling you all the time. One of the boundaries I said I don't put my email address up on my business website because that's a boundary. I don't want people emailing me directly. I want them going through a certain system for me to qualify them. So not until I've had a call with them and stuff that they know what my email address is. They don't have unlimited access to me. They can't just call me on the phone anytime that they want, because I don't even do that with my friends and family. Like after a certain time, I'm a married man, for example. There's who is calling me at midnight? Who am I talking to at 10 p.m. apart from my wife? Like, what business do I have talking to anyone? Especially if like they're a woman, like for example, that's just setting the bad precedent. So in your relationships, at work, in your freelance, in your business, you need to have access boundaries, because not anyone and everyone should be able to reach you at all times. Give yourself some peace of mind. And lastly, have some personal boundaries. Boundaries are not just for other people. Boundaries are for you. So you need to come to a point and be more strict with yourself and have some boundaries that you place on yourself. So I mentioned, boundaries about work and, time, having a time and stuff, having a work-life balance, which is kind of a bit of a myth, but as much as possible, you can put boundaries in place to make sure that you are having a healthier life as a creative. Because it's easy for me, that's been working for myself. It's easy for me to wake up late and work through the night trying to catch up and stuff like that. So a boundary that I set on myself is that I need to be up at a certain time so that I can get certain things done, such as recording this video. And another boundary is that at a certain time, I switch off. I don't take my laptop to the living room, because if I'm relaxing, I don't want the temptation to switch on my laptop and start working again. Boundary, that's a boundary. Another boundary is that I don't take work to my bed. Some people, they don't take their phones to their bed. That's a personal boundary. There's other things like there's only so much Netflix I'm going to watch. Another boundary is that actually, one thing I started doing to myself is that I've started being true to what I want. And the boundary I've set to myself is that if I really don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it. So, for example, if there's a party, a birthday party or whatever it is, and I feel like I should be there, but it's not going to cost me. It's going to be really tiring and all that kind of stuff. And I really don't want to be there unless I really have to, depending on the relationship. Or if there's a certain event, I don't have to be there. But because I'm a people pleaser, I end up going and I don't really enjoy the event. I just want to go home. The personal boundary I've set on myself is that to be honest with myself and be like, do I really want to go to this event? Yes or no? No. There's other ways you can be there for people. You can send them a gift online. You can send them flowers and stuff like that. You can be there for people without physically being there. So that's something I've learned, and that's a personal boundary. But also, there's also the personal boundary of like, don't do too much work. That's something I'm really trying to work on in order to have a life, in order to be more than the work I do, in order to even be more than a husband. You see what I mean? There's I am more than a husband. I am more than a graphic designer. I am more than a brother. I am more than a friend. I am me as well. And if you spend too much time, which I've learned, if I've been quite guilty of all my life is not having boundaries in terms of people pleasing. And I found that most of my life I've been programming myself to please other people, and that's something I'm trying to unprogram. So that's why my boundaries, I've set really kind of clear boundaries with myself that if I really don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it, and I don't need to give an excuse for it. And if I'm too tired, I'll say I'm too tired, and I'll rest. You see what I mean? One of the boundaries is like I need to play. I need to play video games. That's something I love doing, but I haven't done it for such a long time, and I'm trying to get back into that. So a boundary should be for me is that I switch off my laptop at a certain time as much as possible, and I go downstairs and I play video games because I need to escape. Another boundary is I don't talk on the phone late at night, for example. I don't really do that. And if, for example, we're even at home, if my wife and I were gonna have a serious conversation about like finances and stuff like that, the boundary I've set really is that I'm not gonna do it really late at night. If possible, let's move it to tomorrow. Unless it's really, really urgent. We don't have to have all the catch ups on the same day because that's tiring. And mentally, when you're working and then it's mental, like you have to use your mental all the time, it can get very tiring. So those boundaries are really, really important. So those are the 4 boundaries I have. I feel that creators should have in 2025. If I've missed any more out, please let me know in the comments below. And what boundaries are you setting for yourself? Let me know in the comments below. As usual, you can like, you can subscribe, or you can hit the bell so that you never miss another video. But until next time, I'll catch you later. Take care.